Today is December 15th, 2020. My name is Anne Shi. I'm with the Houston Asian American Archive. Today's interviewee is Jay, whose pronoun is they, them, who will be sharing their perspectives on love and gender identity surrounding non-heteronormativity, a term coined by Professor Elizabeth Brake, who is a professor of philosophy at Rice University. This interview is for the Archive's Modern Asian in Love podcast in the Asian Diaspora in Houston series. And we're very thankful for your time, Jay, for sharing with us about your perspectives.
Mhm.
Uh,
About amatonormativity, right?
yes, that would be wonderful.
Mhm.
To start, since this is the first time you've been with the archive, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So, I'm living in Seoul, but I was born in Ulsan, which is southern metropolitan city of South Korea, and I've been identified myself as neutral since 2016, and now I'm working as a interpreter and translator as a freelancer. That's all.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And I guess just for the record, what ethnicity do you identify as?
Ah, Korean? No, no, I'm not ethnic minority in my country.
Great. And what were some of the important family values in your upbringing?
My family, I have my parents, both mother and father, and I have a younger brother. Younger brother.
What were some of the family values, for example, like were they kind of emphasize on, say, being honest, being sincere in your connection with people? Like, what were some of the more important values do they try to instill you with in your upbringing?
They were really emphasized on loyalty to families. For example, you should respect your elder, the elderly in your relatives and family, and also some kind of strong bond between siblings. Those two are, yeah, so very emphasized when I was in childhood and adolescence.
Thank you. And what have been the perception or expectation of gender roles in your family, in your upbringing?
Even though I identify as neutral, but my outer appearance is much looks like just a male person. So they always put me hard emphasis as a first son, first son, which I need to support when whenever they retire their job, but which is quite against my creed, because I think after 20 I'm independent, so I think it's okay not to support each other, like from I'm back from my parents, or my parents are back from me, but for them it is a quite crucial point to maintain as a family. So it's kind of very deep reason why I don't like to be with I don't like to live with them. So maybe this is kind of um, Korean thing. I think, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure probably with the firstborn, it's very different. And there's probably some expectations of responsibilities, such as carry on the family blood and the family name. Is that something that might have been something in your family, or has it impacted your personal relationship in any way?
Uh, uh, for me, I don't care whoever I met as a partner, but for them, it should be someone who who was born to be female and who is still identified herself as a woman. So for them, is heterosexual relationship is crucial, but for me, it doesn't matter. So many thing, many things such as relationship and love and maybe partnership, they are still conflict with me.
Great, thank you for sharing. And moving on to the actual part of the interview, can you share with us what do you think of with the word love?
Mm, I think as I wrote in my email, I don't put a great emphasis on love because for me that word doesn't mean specifically the romantic theme, but it can be useful. It can be usable to describe any relationship that I put a great emotional effort on them, such as family member or a person I know for a very long time, and also a partner. So for me, there is no differences on emphasis for partner and brother and other family members. Just I can call any of these relationships are based on love, but maybe the degree of love will be different, but uh, I can say just both all of them are love.
Thank you. And next, I guess, as this podcast is about love, relationship, and specifically mental normativity, can you share with us some of your understanding about mental normativity and what kind of lifestyle or what kind of personal relationship do you expect in a non-mental normative life?
You mean amateur normative life
Yes.
in comparison with those, uh, for example, romantic relationship. For example, I uh, I've been with my current partner for about a year now, and uh, and during this period, uh, we didn't put let's see hardship on relations such as we have to make intercourse every day or every week. So other Korean heterosexual partnership, this is kind of very basis for keeping their relationship, but for us is nothing. So by in the meantime, they my partner and me were also identified as asexual. So sexual intercourse doesn't matter for us, don't matter for us, but for others, this is very crucial. So, uh, and also we we don't we do support for emotional support, but we don't think we have to support each other for financial support. Mm, yeah, something like something that could be important in heterosexual relationship or non-amateur normative relations are not not a big thing mm, for my relationship.
Thank you for sharing. Um, and next, I was just wondering how do you connect with people? Like what
Uh,
lifestyle?
lifestyle.
Yeah,
These,
other
these days, this is a COVID-19 days, so I reduced to meet many people. But maybe, for example, in the last year, I I'd love to meet a lot of people. For example, I meet at least twice or three times to go out and hang out with my friends for dinner or beer time. And and I didn't care whether they are male or female. So just for me, meeting a new person is a kind of thing that I can understand them each other. So, but these days I don't really communicate with many people except my partner and some of my mm, long standing friends.
Thank you for sharing. Next, I'm wondering what kind of experiences or what kind of people or just in general, what are the journey in that you took in coming towards identify yourself as neutrals.
Uh, I've been conflicted with my body image and my body type, and because after the secondary mm, sexual characteristic on my body, I I hate it. Why should I have this kind of thing in my body? And sometimes I search it for uh, surgery, and but there were there were there were nothing that mm, 100% identify with my ideal body type. So I still have some kind of body dysphoria and gender dysphoria with my body, but uh, during maybe for me it took 3 or 4 years to identify as uterus because uterus is kind of brand new language in Korea. So even though conflict, I had a lot research on, for example, going to library or uh, meeting some social minority organization, but even they were working for social minority and they didn't know the word what is uterus, but they just suggest me as a transgender who are conflict with themselves as a gender dysphoria, but I wasn't I couldn't feel fulfilled about that term, so I studied a lot and look for what should be and which word should describe me more and more. And finally, I could find the term uterus. So at that time, I know I could see other what other nutrists are uh, having problem, and I saw many some articles and some YouTube videos. So from that time I could identify myself as nutrition, even though this can be legal gender in my country.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful to hear. And what were some of the challenges in this process, if you wouldn't mind sharing?
Mm,
Were your family supportive?
of course, there were no family support because my family theme is quite deeply uh, connected to conservative Christian Christian Christianity Christianity. So they don't understand why uh, why there are transgender exist. So for them, transgender is who already went through the surgery. But I someday I indirectly came out as explaining what is transgender in these days, meaning, but they didn't understand, and they also had made some kind of hate speech on it. So I determined not to disclose what I'm really thinking of myself. And um, my younger brother is has been serving for his mandatory military service. So he's also, even though he's younger than me, but he's much conservative on this theme. So there were no family support. So for them, I'm just a great person. But for me, I don't think in that anymore. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you for sharing. That must be pretty difficult for I felt like anyone. I'm wondering, besides family and your partner, what are some of the relationships, either it's friendship or like community that supports you and or mentors you, like given um, like your studies with non-metanormativity and yeah, throughout your journey, I guess if there's someone significant, a mentor, a friend that has been important to you.
Uh, mm, as I briefly mentioned about my uh, organization, Trans Liberation Front, uh, I was at first time some of members in that organization were kind of Facebook friends with me, and I could have some opportunities to meet them in person. And so whenever I kind of have had a problem with my family, or mostly intrinsically I had problem with them, but I couldn't disclose it to my family members. So I had some kind of non-official counseling with them. So it was quite helpful to find me as new choice to for this journey. So and I wondered whether I could be one of working member with them, and they said if you really mm, think of yourself as neutralist, and if you are really eager to contribute some at single point to improve the social minority situation in Korea, So you can be one of us. So for me, they are kind of crucial and significant people, I guess. Of course, some partner and including my current partner, they are helping me in many ways, especially emotionally. But I guess they are one of the important person. Mm, Yeah, that's so.
Thank you for sharing. I'm wondering if your partner does they do they also identify as mu choice?
They don't. They identify as fluid, gender fluid. So I don't transgender couple.
I see. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm also curious to see your opinion on the kind of more diversity in terms of gender and identity. What are some of the societies or the socio-economical changes, for example, internet and like social media and um, the pop culture has impacted on the diversity of and the kind of studies in gender? What do you think in your country has been like the more prominent influence?
Mm, there are some people who identify as lesbian or gay person in mainstream, maybe the celebrities, but they they are not treated as a equal person as other members in their celebrities. So mm, in surface, they are treated as the same people, but as mm, in legal situation or in a social welfare situation, they are not treated as equal. So, and also our Korean mainstream culture does doesn't really doesn't really what can I say? Doesn't really support the LGBT things. And maybe there are some TV program or drama or films can provide some implications which can be which the works can be interpreted as maybe it tells about homosexual or it tells about transgender theme, but they are not mainstream in my country. So if you want to, that's why it for me it took me a very great deal of time to identify myself. What is myself? What can I describe in specific term? So mm, I don't know. Mm, maybe I was looking for maybe I was looking for some kind of hint about transgender uh, example or idol model for what can I be, but which are kind of against Korean mainstream culture. I don't know if this is a good answer, but I guess there. I don't know. That's so.
Thank you. Yeah, that those are interesting as well. And I guess my earlier um, intention was to ask about how, for example, the social media where everyone posts their photos and there's kind of a projection of self-image onto the social media's representation of how one should appear. Um,
Mm.
you also discussed briefly earlier that you went through plastic. Was it plastic surgery to kind of become more in line with the appearance you were aiming for? Like the kind of social media and like the pop culture.
Ah, you can see. Do you know mannequin, right? In clothes attire, like whenever you visit any shopping model for clothing, you
Mm.
can see plastic thing are wearing the suits or other sweaters. So mannequin,
Yeah, the mannequin and
yeah, mannequin doesn't have any specific um
gen.
characteristic as a male or female. For me, that kind of image is ideal form for body type. But yeah, I was looking for any plastic surgery examples that who had which had gone through all the removal of body things, but I couldn't find any significant one, so I couldn't take anything about that, even though still I feel sometimes discomfort on my body, but what can I do?
Thank you for sharing that. And I guess next question relates to how we met through Professor Elizabeth Brake. Like, what was the first time you came across her theory and her book, Minimizing Marriage?
Uh, when whenever I met someone before I met this current partner, whenever I met some girlfriends or other friends, I was wondering why people are mm, always think about romantic love and to support each other uh, so faithfully in a way that I couldn't understand. So I started to search for the 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 theme about love is not the main theme for uh, humanic humanic no interpersonal relationship. And at that time, I could find Elizabeth website which is telling about amatonormativity. So I sent email that could I get a permission of that page to be interpreted in Korean. So I could, so I got permission from her. So that was the first time I knew about that term and I could introduce this term to other Korean people. That was my first time.
And you also mentioned that marriage is not something you aim for, but the law and social benefits always treat people as a unit of family as marriage, and single people, um, at least here in America, I'm not sure about Korea, are like laws and society favors people who are married. Like, what do you think about that? And
Ah, all the laws are all the laws are mm, all the laws exist to support four-member family in my country. So, for example, uh, if you don't get married or if you don't have any legal partner, uh, you cannot be supported as other family member uh, who already consist of four member like father, mother, son, and or daughter. So for mm, to be to be treated as equally as other family family size family, I guess the Korean law thing family means you should you should get married with a proper partner, but it should be a heterosexual based on their relationship. But for me, this is a kind of microaggression for social minority. So, um, and also as as you can imagine, legal and also social welfare system are also all the basic unit for each social welfare system are for the full member, or at least you have a children. So it should whether it would be okay whether that children is adopted or raised as uh, your offspring. But if you don't have any children, if you are not married, you you are not really welcomed in Korea, I think. Even though it doesn't matter, uh, and they don't mm, they I guess they don't care about the other kind of family type. So that's why I'm still working for that translation from organization, and also um, try to enlighten other friends who are not really familiar with these terms. That and there's no law called discrimination law in my country. So maybe it should be very different from America or England, I guess. So when I saw the same-sex marriage law uh, was effective in Taiwan, I thought, when would we have such a thing in my country? That's all.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. It's definitely something that we all strive for. And I saw that you have a personal blog. Speaking of trying to enlighten people about the differences and the diversity of gender um, identities. Like, can you share with us your intention with starting this blog? And I saw that you also had some hashtags on feminism. Like, can you also speak a little bit about that?
Ah, first, when I started my blog, it doesn't. I didn't. I didn't have any intention on enlightening people. At first I started it as mm, collecting some musics that I liked, but as time went by, I could I got into feminism and some other social issues. So and also I had some kind of little but not a maybe just at least 100 people could visit my website. So I thought about this may be a kind of source that I can impact people. So that was, I guess it was from 2015 or 16, I guess. That was my first time to use my blog as a social and political issues on feminism and social minority issues and also veganism, something like that. Mhm. So it's kind of uh mm, just change of my thought. I wasn't intended to I didn't intend to make it from the start, but it's it's now it's going on.
Yeah,
Yes, sure.
definitely. Yeah. And you also mentioned you work for the Trans Liberation Front as a manager member and a trans rights activist. Did you see some of the works you've done in helping people who are kind of in that stage of their struggling to find their identity? Would you mind
Mhm.
sharing some of the stories? Like one or
Uh, mm, uh, in Korea, there is no specific legal, not legal. Sorry. There are specific law to officially who wants to considering who wants to change about their legal gender from male men to woman, woman to man. So even though there are some uh, legal, I don't know what's the right description of that. Uh, some kind of little regulation in minor low house. I think this is not a proper, but I guess maybe in a city or in a province, you could ask for to to change your gender, but there are so many things that the legal organization to demand what kind of thing that can prove you are still you have problem with your gender dysphoria, but there is no um, official regulation in constitutional but in constitutional level or just below that level. So we are focusing on making that specific law called transgender special law. So we we sent them a um, legal letter last year, and also we got some, and also we kept uh, collecting petition from um, other civil members, citizens. So they we got about more than 3,000 people from for 8 months, I guess. It was went through both online and offline. Also, we occasionally took part in queer festival in Seoul and other cities such as Jeonju, Busan, Daegu, which are kind of metropolitan in my country. And time to time, we also um, supported other social NGOs which are focused on feminism or female issues, female right issues. So these are mm, because we think all kind of discrimination are deeply related to each other, not separate. Like for example, if the transgender rights are going up, uh, the female rights are going down. We don't think in this way. So we think those kind of uh, rights, human rights, are related to each other. So we, time to time, if we can afford supporting them, we are trying to find a way, for example, to find um, to make some kind of demonstration on mm, some bad company, or maybe a demonstration or parade in a specific area which are historically quite related to transgender or transgender people or something else. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you for sharing. And next, if you wouldn't mind sharing, could you tell us how you met your partner, and if, in terms of like comparing the relationship with your partner among your other relationships in your life, for example, friendships or family, like is there a priority, or how do you kind of value the relationships between the people in your lives?
Mm. I met my current partner uh, among veganism community in my country, and she and they and we already identified ourselves as a vegan for a long time. So at first that was our uh, first encounter in thought, but so and when we could meet and when we had some time to talk about those um, idea, we could also find about the good good connection on issues like the feminism or transgender issues. So and also maybe either third or fourth time I we came out each other what we are really thinking about ourselves. So and also this relationship is my first time to reveal all my um, identities. So but before this relationship, I could say I'm kind of vegan or I'm kind of transgender, but there are there were not many people who could understand this kind of identities or social values. So um, I guess there are some friends who are not transgender and who are not vegan and who could understand me, but this person who this I could say this person knows maybe more than what other people I have met. Mhm. Yeah, this.
Thank you. Um, and I'm just wondering, how do you prioritize the relationship with your partner, in, like in terms of, um, I guess, speaking of a non-normative lifestyle, um,
Mm,
like romantic relationships, they're kind of considered equal, or in a way, kind of can
mm,
be interchangeable with other relationships, or that's my kind of understanding. If you would correct me, there like how what is the priority you of your relationship with your partner in terms of other relationships?
Ah, mm, maybe they could understand my my words because they they also said they don't put a great emphasis on love in terms of non-amart or normativity. This word is not used, not not okay. Never mind. Anything, but maybe there are some some difference like I can I I'd love to meet my partner more than others, but it doesn't mean that this is uh romantic and I care them more than others. But for me, I think I just put some kind of um, little difference between friends and my partner and my family. Just I I'm living with my partner, so that's why I could talk more than other people. But this doesn't mean I don't care about others. I think for me, like I could, for example, if I have to visit someone in other city, I could, mm, I could believe anyone to come to my room to keep safe, regardless of my partner and my brother and my family. But because my family are my especially my parents don't know whether I consider myself as transgender, and there are some books and other items in my room about that. So I could make I could make it secret before I could visit before I could ask them to fill in my space. But I just don't I don't know, babe. Plus, I don't understand why other people are really caring about only their loved one, for example, girlfriend or boyfriend, and they are, mm, and sometimes they, uh, ah, yeah, my, for example, my ex girlfriend, she asked me to cut off all the relationship, except from her when I had relationship with her, and I couldn't understand about that kind of thing. So I told her, for me, you and my other friends are equal, and she said she should be the superior to other personal relationship with me, but I couldn't, make it fully to understand myself about her, non-amateur normativity. I thought so. Maybe at that it was during middle, um, during first 2023 2023 or 22. It was quite a long time ago, but I could I guess I could understand about the idea of amatonormativity, but I didn't know the word, I guess. But now me and my partner doesn't care really about, we don't really have a great difference on the degree of love in any kind of relationships, I guess. 됐죠?
That's really interesting to hear. And so, did that kind of was became part of the journey in understanding and trying to learn more about your preference in gender identity?
Mm, I guess yes, yes, yes. Because I don't, even though I feel some kind of, I'm reluctant to uh have sexual intercourse with anyone, but this doesn't mean that I'm not really. Sometimes I can be attracted to them, but just um, it's about my sexual orientation. I'm reluctant to, but it doesn't mean that not attached. I'm not attached or I'm not attracted. So yeah, I think this kind of um, thought quite um, influenced me about my identity as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Um, I guess that's all of my questions. Do you have anything you would like to add that we didn't cover? Any final words?
Mm, I think I I told about myself a lot, so maybe you could give me another question.
Oh yeah, sure, sure. Um, So I think we talked briefly about starting feminism. Like I saw that you have a diverse range and went very well in depth about queer feminism, postmodern feminism, trans feminism, intersectional feminism, radical feminism, eco feminism, and you're also advocating sex workers' rights and animal rights. So all these different like theories, like what was the process in kind of realizing and coming together with all these layers about your identity and discovering other identities like among the human species, I guess.
Because I think one of my aspect is to be curious about things that I don't know. So first, uh, like of, mm, I think it can be generalized to all the other social idea that I have been encountered, feminism, veganism, or trans right, or other, maybe also the refugee issues, so and sex worker issues. So I just I whenever I can find some kind of social discrimination on my country or other country, I just wonder why this is happening, and I just start to research and find someone uh who could make me figure out what's going on. And if I if I if I feel more if I feel more uh if I feel more mm, curious about them, I just wanna I bought some book and other articles to just get to know 100% to understand myself. So that's why now, so it's been a long time to hear about so many social issues. I guess it's from my 24th. There was no mm, no big change in my life like someone who are telling me that you should know this kind of thing. Just I um, bound into find those things. So yeah, I think that is my answer for your question. Why I started or why I care about them. I I found it. Yes, that could be my answer.
Yeah, thank you. I always find like these different um, perspectives of feminism really fascinating, and I'm really, yeah, amazed that you've looked so much in depth of this. I guess for my last question, like, what do you think of the mass media and the mainstream, like TV or movie representation of LGBTQIA plus, and like, would there be in the near future, in your view, about a like non a meta-normative view of kind of the relationship between human beings and like aromantic and asexual um, like worldview, like would you consider that to be a near future possibility?
Uh, Maybe if I happen to uh live until 100 years, maybe it could happen. But I think that those things that you mentioned earlier, I think those things wouldn't happen soon. Considering my country's condition, and I sometimes I wanna describe my country as a um, uh, romance centric country because all the relationships in media are considered as love or especially hetero romantic or heterosexual based on. But I think there can be some works that could give us implication about aromanticism or asexual or other social minority issues, but in still the mainstream thing, some of aromanticism just say this is uh, two male persons friendship, but for me that's um, somehow different. But also my other members of my group says that shouldn't be just a normal description as a friendship, but there could be a romantic. They could implicate indicate about a romanticism or others. But yeah, it's still going on about. It's kind of erasure for other values. So yeah, I think I could see some works are representing about aromanticism or amatonormativity in the future, but it wouldn't be mm, it wouldn't appear soon in I guess in the year 10 years. That's all.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, definitely remember growing up watching a lot of Korean soap opera that are very romantic, and that I guess that mainstream culture is definitely very much against the asexual and aromantic gender identity. Um, I guess for the record of or put in more context for people who might be listening in the future, what age or what range of age, if you're comfortable to disclose, are you?
Mm, You mean my age now or
Yeah, your age now,
ah
or
uh,
just range is fine too if you're comfortable with that.
uh mm, around 30?
Great. Thank you.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, I guess if you don't have any other final words, then that's the yeah, that concludes the interview today. And I just want to thank you so much for spending time to go through all these perspectives and stories and helping us find out more about and like brainstorm more about how a future with a more diverse and more studied identity in terms of our human condition can be. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you because uh as I told you, I couldn't imagine this kind of interview could happen because I just looked for what is amatonormativity,
Mm,
and I could finally I could get a email address from Elizabeth, and also I should say thank you to her as well because uh, even I have sometimes I have some kind of newspaper or other interviews, but that were kind of briefly. I could briefly mention about transgender or veganism, like over 5 minutes or 10 minutes. But this is a kind of 1 hour interview. So I can say I'm more thankful about to be given this opportunity to talking talking about normativity and other my journey to my relationship and gender. Uh, yeah, that this just this is amazing. Yes, I can say. Thank you for again. Thank you again to have me this kind of um, have me join this opportunity and this project.